An alien lord sent his neglected daughter to a human, and she rose as a hero. On board the enormous starship Eclipse of Carrion, the halls were silent except for the occasional hum of machinery. This ship was more than a vessel. It was a floating palace, a home to wealth, power, and influence. Yet for Lyra, it felt like a cage. Lyra, the daughter of Lord Carrion, had spent her entire life in this vast, cold ship. She had grown up surrounded by luxury, yet no one had truly noticed her. Courtiers bowed when she entered rooms, but their eyes were empty, their words polite but meaningless. Her father, Lord Carrion, was a figure of awe and fear, a ruler whose decisions shaped entire star systems. To him, Lyra was a mere distraction, a child of no real consequence. Today, however, the halls whispered with tension. Servants hurried past, carrying messages and data pads, their faces pale with anticipation. Lyra knew something was different. She had overheard fragments of conversations in the corridors. "The girl, she must leave," one voice had said. "It is time," another agreed. Her heart had sunk then, though she did not know why. She found her father in the observation chamber, standing tall and rigid before the window that displayed the stars streaking past. The room was large and cold, with silver panels and glowing lines of light tracing the edges of the walls. Lord Carrion's gaze was fixed on the horizon of the universe, as if he could see beyond the stars themselves. "Father," Lyra began softly, her voice echoing slightly in the empty chamber. Why am I summoned?" Lord Carrion did not turn. "Lyra," he said, his voice calm but sharp, "you have not proven useful to the realm. Your training is sufficient, but your presence here serves no purpose." Lyra's stomach tightened. "I have tried to learn to help," she whispered. "I have studied the histories, the sciences, the strategies." "You have observed, but you have not acted," he interrupted, finally turning to face her. His eyes were cold, as if searching her for some hidden flaw. "Your place is not here. You will be sent to a human colony on the edge of our explored space. There you may discover if you have any true worth." Lyra's lips parted in shock. "A human, a colony," she repeated, disbelief cracking her voice. "But that is far away. The humans, they are not like us." Lord Carrion's expression did not change. "They are survivors. They are resourceful. You may learn from them, or you may fail. Either way, it is no longer my concern." The words landed like a hammer. Lyra felt a wave of betrayal and fear. She had always known her father was strict, even distant, but she had not expected this. Exile, sent to a world she did not know, among beings she barely understood. Her mind spun with questions. Would the humans accept her? Would she survive on her own? Could she even survive at all? Her preparations were brief. Within hours, Lyra was escorted to a small shuttle, sleek and silent. The human colony was light years away, a tiny dot in the immense galaxy. As the shuttle detached from the mothership, Lyra pressed her hands against the viewport, watching the eclipse of Carrion recede into the distance. She felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and a strange spark of curiosity. Perhaps this exile was not just punishment, it might be a test she could pass. The journey to the colony was long and quiet. Lyra spent her time studying the data about the human planet, known as Aurora Prime. It was a frontier world, mostly wild and undeveloped, with scattered settlements and a population that had learned to thrive despite harsh conditions. The humans had no advanced starships like hers, but they had ingenuity, courage, and a stubborn determination to survive. When she finally landed, the shuttle trembled slightly as it touched the uneven surface. Lyra stepped out and felt the alien world beneath her feet. The air was thinner than she was used to, and the sunlight seemed warmer and harsher at the same time. Aurora Prime was beautiful in a rugged, untamed way. Rolling plains stretched to distant mountains, forests swayed in the wind, and rivers glittered like silver threads. But for Lyra, it was also frightening. The humans who met her were cautious. They wore simple uniforms, their expressions wary. One of them, a man named Eli, stepped forward. His hair was dark, his eyes sharp, but his voice was steady. "You're Lyra?" he asked. "We weren't expecting someone like you." Lyra nodded, unsure how to respond. I am sent here," she said carefully, "by my father. He wishes for me to live here." Eli glanced at her, then at the small group behind him. "Well, you'll need a place to stay," he said. "We don't have palaces, but we have homes. You'll be safe here for now." Lyra followed him, feeling both out of place and strangely alive. The humans' homes were simple, constructed from metal and local stone. The walls were decorated with personal touches, drawings, tools, small gadgets, and everything felt lived in, unlike the sterile perfection of her starship. She realized she had never known this kind of life before, one where people worked, laughed, and struggled together in ways that were unpredictable and real. Days turned into weeks. Lyra began learning the human way of life. She helped in the fields, observed their technology, and listened to their stories. The humans were rough and practical, but they were kind in ways her own people had never been. Eli and his friends, Mara, a scout, and Jonas, a young engineer, taught her how to handle tools, how to read the land, and how to defend herself. At first, she struggled. Her alien strength and intelligence were useless in simple human tasks like tending crops or repairing engines. She grew frustrated, even angry, but she began to understand something important. Humans were clever not because they had advanced technology, but because they adapted and never gave up. One evening, as the twin moons of Aurora Prime rose over the horizon, Lyra sat on a hill overlooking the colony. The wind tugged at her hair, and she felt a strange mixture of homesickness and wonder. She thought about her father, about the world she had left behind, and about the humans who had taken her in despite her strangeness. Perhaps this exile was not just punishment. It was an opportunity to learn, to grow, to become someone more than what her father had ever allowed her to be. Her first test came sooner than she expected. A sudden storm swept across the plains, stronger than any the humans had anticipated. Rivers swelled and mudslides threatened the settlement. Lyra, seeing the danger, acted without hesitation. She used her strength to move debris and help evacuate the colonists. Her actions surprised the humans. They had not expected her to act so quickly, so decisively. For the first time, Lyra felt a spark of pride. She was not just a neglected daughter. She could make a difference. The storm passed, leaving the colony battered but intact. The humans cheered her efforts, and for the first time, Lyra felt the warmth of acceptance. She realized that here, she was not defined by her father or by her birthright. Here, she could define herself. As she looked at the horizon, the stars shining faintly above, Lyra made a quiet promise to herself. She would learn everything she could from these humans. She would grow stronger, wiser, and more capable than anyone, human or alien, had ever expected. And perhaps one day she would return to the stars, not as the neglected daughter of a powerful lord, but as a hero in her own right. For now, though, she would survive, she would learn, and she would belong. And that, she realized with a thrill, was the beginning of her real journey. Lyra woke to the sound of the wind brushing through the trees and the distant calls of birds she had never seen before. Aurora Prime had grown familiar to her in ways she had not expected. The humans had accepted her, and for the first time in her life, she felt something she had never known aboard the Eclipse of Carrion: belonging. Eli, the scout who had greeted her when she arrived, was already waiting at the edge of the settlement. He had a rough smile and a sharp glint in his eyes. "Good morning, Lyra," he said. "Ready for another day of learning?" Lyra nodded, adjusting the simple clothing she had grown used to. Her own garments from the starship, silken and heavy with decorative designs, had been useless here. "I think I am," she replied, her voice careful but eager. Today, Eli had a special lesson in mind. He led her to the edge of the settlement, where the land opened into wild plains dotted with strange plants and rocky hills. "Humans survive here because we understand the land," Eli explained. "We read the signs, we follow the weather, and we learn how to use what we find. You'll need to do the same if you want to thrive here." Lyra followed him, observing carefully. Everything about this world was different from her own. The soil, the trees, the rivers, the way the sun felt warmer on her skin. She had grown up in perfect artificial environments aboard her father's ship, where every temperature, every sound, every movement was controlled. Here, everything was alive and unpredictable. Eli stopped beside a patch of tall grasses. "These can be used for food or as shelter material if you know how," he said. He showed her how to bend and weave the stalks into simple mats. At first, Lyra's hands fumbled and she became frustrated. Her alien dexterity had helped her handle delicate machinery aboard her starship, but it was useless with these living, flexible materials. "Patience," Eli said kindly, seeing her frustration. "Humans survive because we do not give up. Even when the task seems impossible, we keep trying. You'll learn that eventually." Lyra tried again, focusing on the rhythm of the grasses. Slowly, she began to understand the subtle differences in texture, the tension in the stalks, and how to bend them without breaking. For the first time, she felt the satisfaction of learning something purely by trial, rather than following a rigid protocol or command. After the lesson, they returned to the settlement, where Mara, the scout, and Jonas, the young engineer, were waiting. Lyra, Mara said, her voice sharp but not unkind, I've been watching you. You have the skills, but you need to think like a human to survive here. Adaptation, observation, improvisation, that is the key. Lyra listened carefully, absorbing their words. She realized that her life aboard the Eclipse of Carrion had trained her to follow instructions perfectly, to memorize facts, and to execute orders. But here, the rules were different. Mistakes were not punished by a cold authority, they were opportunities to learn. Jonas handed her a small, intricate device. This is a water filter, he explained. We use it to make river water safe to drink. It is simple, but it works. Humans make things practical. You need to see value in practicality, not just perfection. Lyra studied the device, noting its clever design. It was crude compared to the technology she had known, but it was effective. She realized that the humans had a kind of intelligence that was different from the calculated logic of her people, a creativity born from necessity and survival. Days turned into weeks, and Lyra's skills improved. She learned how to hunt small game, how to track animals, how to read the weather by observing the clouds and the wind. She learned how to fix engines with spare parts, how to weave shelters from local plants, and how to treat minor injuries. With each lesson, she gained confidence and respect from the humans. But Lyra's growth was not only physical, it was also emotional. She began to understand the importance of trust, friendship, and community. Eli, Mara, and Jonas were not just teachers. They were companions who relied on each other and included her in their plans. For the first time, Lyra felt that her abilities mattered, not because of her birthright, but because of her actions and her decisions. One evening, she accompanied Eli and Mara on a scouting mission beyond the settlement. The terrain was rugged, and the wind carried scents and sounds unfamiliar to her. Humans survive here because we observe, Eli said. Every footprint, every broken branch, every scent tells a story. Learn to read the world and you will never be caught unprepared. Lyra studied the ground carefully. She noticed small signs she would have overlooked before. A broken twig indicating a small animal had passed, a pattern of footprints suggesting a hidden path, a distant shadow moving in the forest. She realized that humans thrived not by having the strongest bodies or the sharpest minds alone, but by paying attention and adapting constantly. As they returned to the settlement, Mara spoke quietly to Lyra. You are different from the humans, she said. Stronger, faster, smarter, but that alone will not make you survive. You need to combine your strengths with what you learn from us. That is when you will truly shine. Lyra pondered this as she walked. Her alien abilities were impressive, but she had learned that strength without understanding could be useless. She needed patience, observation, and the creativity that humans possessed. Slowly, she began to blend the lessons of both worlds, experimenting with new techniques and solutions. Her progress did not go unnoticed. Other colonists began to watch her with curiosity and respect. They saw the way she combined her alien skills with human practicality, and they began to accept her as part of their community. Lyra felt a quiet pride. She was no longer just the neglected daughter of an alien lord. She was becoming someone capable of making a difference. But peace rarely lasted long. One morning, while Lyra was helping Jonas repair a water turbine, a scout arrived with urgent news. A fleet of unknown ships had been detected near the outer edges of Aurora Prime. The humans had seen them before, rogue warlords and pirates who preyed on isolated settlements. Eli's face was tense. They are getting closer, he said. If they attack, this colony could be in serious danger. Lyra felt a surge of determination. This was the moment she had been preparing for, even without knowing it. She had learned the human ways, but she also possessed abilities that no human had. If danger came, she could act in ways they could not. Over the next days, the settlement prepared for a potential attack. Lyra trained alongside the militia, learning how humans fought in small, strategic ways. She discovered that while humans were not as fast or strong as her, they were clever, adaptable, and brave. They worked together, anticipating moves, setting traps, and using the land to their advantage. Lyra began to contribute in her own way. She used her speed and strength to fortify weak points, to help humans reach high positions that were otherwise unreachable, and to carry heavy equipment quickly across the settlement. She began to feel a sense of purpose she had never experienced aboard the Eclipse of Carrion. Here she was needed. Here she could matter. One night after a long day of preparation, Lyra stood on a hill overlooking the settlement. The twin moons cast silver light across the land, and she felt the wind on her face. She thought about her father and the life she had left behind. Perhaps he had sent her away to punish her, but in doing so, he had given her the greatest gift, a chance to grow, to learn, and to find herself. She turned her gaze toward the stars, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. The humans had taught her resilience, creativity, and courage. She knew that challenges would come, perhaps sooner than expected. But for the first time, Lyra felt ready to face them, not as a neglected daughter, but as someone who could act, adapt, and lead. Her journey had only just begun, but already she was learning that true strength was not in status or title, but in knowledge, action, and heart. And Lyra, the girl once overlooked and underestimated, was beginning to rise. Aurora Prime's mornings had a quiet beauty that often fooled the mind. The plains shimmered under the sunlight, and the twin moons left faint silver trails in the night sky. But the calm was deceptive. Lyra had learned that life on a frontier planet was never truly peaceful. Danger often arrived without warning. It began with scouts reporting unusual activity near the edges of the colony. Strange ships, sleek and angular, unlike anything the humans had built, were appearing in the distance. They moved with precision, scouting the territory, testing the colony's defenses. The humans grew tense. Whispers of a rogue warlord spread through the settlement, an alien commander who had broken away from the main empire, seeking to take control of isolated worlds. Eli, Mara, and Jonas met with the colony leaders to discuss the situation. Lyra, standing beside them, listened carefully. Though humans were planning defenses, she realized that their technology was limited. The warlords' ships outmatched anything they could field, and any direct confrontation would be catastrophic. "We have to be smart," Eli said, his voice steady but urgent. "We can't fight them head-on. We have to use the land, our knowledge of the terrain, and clever tactics to slow them down." Lyra's mind raced. She had learned from the humans, but now she had to combine that knowledge with her own alien skills, strength, speed, and advanced awareness, to make a real difference. She knew she could not simply follow orders. She had to think strategically. The first encounter came sooner than expected. A scouting team spotted a small group of the warlords' drones moving toward the settlement. They were mechanical, silent, and efficient, designed to scout, disrupt, and eliminate. Lyra, Eli, and Mara prepared to intercept. Lyra moved faster than the humans could keep up with, her alien reflexes allowing her to dodge and disarm the drones with ease. She noticed patterns in their movement, subtle signals that the humans had missed. Using these insights, she directed Eli and Mara to set traps and ambush points, creating a defensive line that the drones could not penetrate. The humans were astonished. "Where did you learn that?" Eli asked, watching as Lyra coordinated the defense. Lyra shook her head. "I watch, I observe, and I act," she said simply. "We must think ahead, not just react." When the drones were neutralized, the humans cheered quietly, though the celebration was muted by the knowledge that the warlord himself would not stop at a few machines. He was coming, and the colony had to be ready. Over the following days, Lyra worked tirelessly with the humans. She helped reinforce the settlement's defenses, using her strength to move heavy barriers and supplies. She taught the militia new tactics, blending her alien precision with human improvisation. She climbed towers to set lookout posts, repaired damaged equipment, and trained alongside the humans in combat drills. Despite her contributions, Lyra sometimes felt doubt creeping in. She was far from home, facing enemies who were stronger and better equipped than the humans. Could she really protect this colony? Could she truly make a difference? One evening, while watching the stars from a high hill, Eli joined her. "You're worried," he said, sitting beside her. Lyra nodded. "I have skills, but this threat, it is bigger than I imagined. I am not sure I can protect everyone." Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lyra, you've already done more than most humans could. You've learned, adapted, and led. Strength is important, but it's not enough. It's your mind, your heart, and your willingness to act that make you different. You're ready for this, even if it doesn't feel like it." Lyra felt a spark of determination. Eli was right. She had grown, learned, and adapted. She had the humans' trust and support. She could not fail them. The first major attack came at dawn, when the twin moons were low on the horizon and the plains glowed softly with early light. The rogue warlord's ships appeared over the mountains, casting long shadows across the settlement. His forces were larger than the colony had anticipated, with heavily armed drones and ground troops prepared for invasion. Lyra and the militia had prepared traps and fortifications. The humans moved with courage and precision, following the plans Lyra had helped create. As the first wave of drones descended, Lyra sprang into action. She moved faster than any human, intercepting enemies, disabling machines, and directing humans to weak points. Her combination of alien strength and human strategy gave them an advantage that neither humans nor aliens alone could have achieved. The battle raged for hours. Explosions rocked the plains, and the air was filled with the sound of clashing metal and shouted commands. Lyra worked tirelessly, her mind analyzing every move, her body reacting instinctively to threats. The humans fought bravely, inspired by her example, and gradually the tide of the battle shifted. During a pause in the fighting, Lyra climbed a ridge to assess the situation. From there, she could see the warlord's main ship approaching, larger and more menacing than anything she had imagined. Its weapons glinted in the sunlight, and she realized that a direct confrontation would be disastrous. She returned to the human leaders, speaking quickly. "We cannot fight them directly. We need to lure them into the valley and use the terrain against them. We can trap their ground troops and force the ship to retreat." Eli nodded. "That's risky, but it may be our only chance. Are you sure you can lead this?" Lyra met his eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility. "I will do my best. Follow my lead and trust me." The plan was set into motion. Lyra directed small groups of humans to strategic points, guiding them with precision. Using her speed and strength, she moved between positions, coordinating movements and anticipating enemy actions. The humans, inspired by her confidence and skill, executed the plan flawlessly. As the rogue warlord's forces entered the valley, they triggered hidden traps and ambushes. Drones were captured or destroyed, ground troops were funneled into narrow paths where human marksmen waited, and the warlord's ship was forced to hover above, unable to deploy its full strength without risking damage. Lyra seized the opportunity. She sprinted ahead, using her alien agility to leap across obstacles, disarm key machines, and create confusion among the enemy ranks. Her actions were swift and precise, giving the humans the advantage they needed. By midday, the battle was turning in the colony's favor. The rogue warlord, frustrated by the unexpected resistance and losses, signaled a retreat. His ships withdrew, disappearing into the horizon, and his ground forces scattered. The humans cheered, exhausted but victorious. Lyra stood among them, breathing heavily, her body covered in dust and sweat. She had fought alongside humans, protected them, and led them to victory. For the first time, she felt the true weight and thrill of being a hero, not because of birthright, but because of courage, intelligence, and action. After the battle, the humans gathered in the center of the settlement. Eli approached her, smiling. "You did it, Lyra. You saved us. We couldn't have done it without you." Lyra shook her head, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "We did it together," she said. "I have skills, yes, but it was your courage, your strategy, and your trust that made the difference. I only guided it." The humans cheered again, and for the first time, Lyra felt a true sense of belonging. She was no longer just an outsider, a neglected daughter sent to a human world. She was a hero in her own right, someone who had proven that even the underestimated could rise to greatness. That night, as the twin moons rose over the valley, Lyra stood on the ridge once more. She looked out at the colony she had helped protect, at the humans who had become her friends and companions, and at the stars beyond. She knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and opportunities alike, and she had only begun to discover her potential. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. She had faced a threat far greater than she had imagined, combined the lessons of humanity with her own alien abilities, and emerged victorious. The journey ahead would be long and challenging, but Lyra was ready. She had learned the value of courage, creativity, and collaboration. She had learned that even the smallest group, united and guided by cleverness and heart, could overcome overwhelming odds. And she had learned something even more important. She was no longer the neglected daughter of an alien lord. She was a leader, a protector, and a rising hero, a force that neither humans nor aliens could ignore. The dawn broke over Aurora Prime like a promise. Golden light spilled across the plains, touching the peaks of distant mountains and sparkling on the rivers that twisted through the wildlands. After the victory against the rogue warlord's forces, the settlement buzzed with renewed energy. The humans had survived, and for the first time in many cycles, they felt hope, pride, and confidence in their ability to protect themselves. Lyra walked through the colony, observing the aftermath of the battle. Buildings had been damaged, machinery needed repair, and some of the smaller farms had been trampled in the chaos. Yet none of this dimmed the human spirit. Children played amidst the ruins, learning resilience in ways Lyra had never seen in her own perfect, controlled world. Eli approached her holding a data pad. "Lyra," he said, a hint of excitement in his voice, "the council wants to meet with you. They want your input on the defense strategies for the colony." Lyra nodded. It had been a strange change for her. Just a few cycles ago, she had been an outsider, a neglected alien girl who had no place in this human world. Now, humans were asking for her advice, listening to her strategies, and even respecting her opinions. It was a feeling that made her chest swell with pride, and yet it also reminded her of the responsibility she carried. The council convened in a central hall, a large open space filled with humans of all ages. Lyra stood among them, feeling the weight of their expectation. She was not a native of Aurora Prime, and yet here she was, tasked with guiding humans who had relied on her during the battle. "We need to prepare for the possibility of a return," a council member said, his voice grave. "The rogue warlord may not give up so easily. He may come back stronger with more forces." Lyra stepped forward. "We cannot rely on luck alone," she said. "We need to strengthen our defenses, yes, but we also need to train, to plan, and to think creatively. The warlord expects us to react. We must act first to surprise him." The humans listened, nodding. Lyra outlined a plan combining human ingenuity with her alien knowledge. They would create hidden fortifications, train small rapid response teams, and develop ways to use the terrain to their advantage. She suggested scouting patrols to anticipate enemy movements and ways to conserve resources while maximizing efficiency. For the first time, Lyra realized the power of collaboration. Humans brought ideas that were creative and unpredictable, while she contributed precision, observation, and unique skills. Together, they formed a strategy stronger than any individual effort. The weeks that followed were filled with training, preparation, and innovation. Lyra worked closely with Eli, Myra, and Jonas, but also began teaching others. She showed the scouts how to move silently across the plains, taught engineers how to reinforce machinery using both human and alien techniques, and trained farmers in defensive tactics they could use if the colony was attacked again. One day, Lyra led a small group into the surrounding wilderness to test their skills in a simulated scenario. They practiced ambushing a small group of mock enemies, moving with speed, precision, and coordination. Lyra guided them with calm authority, correcting mistakes and encouraging creativity. She was no longer the observer, she was the leader. During one exercise, a human scout slipped and fell near a cliff edge. Lyra reacted instinctively, catching him with strength and speed that startled everyone watching. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice steady, though her heart had raced for a moment. The scout nodded, eyes wide. I didn't think anyone could reach me that fast. You saved me." Lyra smiled gently. "We watch out for each other. That is how we survive." Her actions inspired those around her. Humans began to see her not as an alien outsider, but as a symbol of courage, skill, and unity. Children who had once been shy around her now sought her guidance, and adults began to rely on her judgment in matters of strategy and defense. As her reputation grew, word of her deeds spread beyond the colony. Traders and scouts who traveled between settlements spoke of the alien girl who had saved the humans from the rogue warlord. Tales of her bravery inspired hope in other frontier colonies, and humans began to look to her as a beacon of possibility. Despite the growing admiration, Lyra remained humble. She knew that the true strength of the colony lay not in her alone, but in the cooperation, ingenuity, and courage of every human who had fought beside her. She continued to train, plan, and act, preparing for the day when the rogue warlord might return. One evening, as she rested atop a hill overlooking the settlement, Mara joined her. "Lyra," she said quietly, "you've changed everything here." People trust you, respect you, even admire you. You've become more than anyone expected. Lyra looked at the humans below, tending to their tasks, laughing and rebuilding. I am not alone, she said. They are the ones who made this possible. I only helped guide them. Mara nodded. That may be true, but guidance requires strength, and you have shown it in ways we could never have imagined. You are rising, Lyra, not just as a leader, but as a hero. Lyra felt a swell of determination. She had been sent away to humans as a punishment, to be forgotten and neglected. Instead, she had found purpose, friendship, and respect. She was learning that heroism was not given. It was earned through courage, action, and the willingness to rise above doubt and fear. As the moons rose over Aurora Prime that night, Lyra trained alone in the open plains. Her movements were fluid and precise, a combination of alien skill and human creativity. She practiced tactics, weapons, and strategies, pushing herself to the limits. The humans had taught her resilience, and now she was mastering it, preparing for challenges that she could not yet see. The calm of the night was broken by a distant sound, the faint hum of engines far beyond the settlement. Lyra froze, listening carefully. The rogue warlord was returning. She felt a mixture of fear and excitement. This was the moment her training, her learning, and her leadership would be tested. She ran to alert the settlement, her speed carrying her faster than anyone else could move. Eli and Mara met her at the central hall, concern written on their faces. It's time, Lyra said, steadying her voice. We've prepared for this. We are ready. The humans began their final preparations. Fortifications were reinforced, traps were set, and teams were organized for rapid response. Lyra moved among them, giving guidance, encouragement, and support. Her presence inspired confidence, and the humans followed her lead with trust and determination. When the rogue warlord's fleet appeared on the horizon, the settlement was ready. The ships moved with precision, expecting easy victory, but Lyra had anticipated their approach. Using the terrain, the traps, and the human ingenuity she had helped cultivate, she guided the defenders to strike with coordination and speed. The battle that followed was intense. Machines clashed, humans moved with skill and determination, and Lyra's alien abilities allowed her to act where humans could not. She leapt across obstacles, disarmed enemies, and coordinated defenses, turning the tide again in the colony's favor. By the end of the day, the warlord's forces were forced to retreat once more. This time, the humans cheered loudly, not only for the survival of their homes, but for the hero who had guided them. Lyra stood among them, exhausted but triumphant. She had led, inspired, and acted with courage beyond expectation. For the first time, she allowed herself to fully embrace her role. She was no longer just an exile, a neglected daughter sent to a human world. She was a rising hero, a leader, and a symbol of hope. Humans looked to her for guidance, aliens would hear of her deeds, and Lyra realized that her journey was only beginning. The next cycle brought celebration and rebuilding, but also quiet reflection. Lyra knew that the galaxy was vast and full of dangers. Yet she had discovered a truth that no exile, no neglect, and no distant father could take away. Her strength was not only in her abilities, but in her courage, determination, and the trust she had earned. As she watched the twin moons rise once more, Lyra made a silent promise to herself. She would continue to grow, continue to lead, and continue to rise, not just as a protector of humans, but as a force that could shape the destiny of stars. For Lyra, the neglected daughter had become a rising hero. The galaxy had seen only a glimpse of her potential, and she knew that greater challenges and greater victories awaited. The morning sun rose over Aurora Prime, bathing the settlement in soft golden light. After the repeated attacks from the rogue warlord, the colony had grown stronger. Humans moved with confidence, their skills sharpened, and their spirits high. Lyra walked among them, observing the progress with a quiet sense of pride. Every repaired building, every trained scout, every fortified wall was a testament to the courage, resilience, and ingenuity she had helped nurture. Yet in the depths of her thoughts, one question lingered like a shadow: her father. Lord Carrion, the ruler who had once dismissed her as unworthy, would surely hear of her deeds. His vast network of informants and messengers would not overlook the stories of the alien girl who had risen to lead humans. The thought made her uneasy. She had left home to survive, not to confront him, yet she could not ignore the possibility that he might come. That day, as Lyra helped coordinate patrols along the border of the settlement, a sudden ripple of tension swept through the air. Scouts reported an approaching vessel, sleek, massive, unmistakably the mark of Carrion's fleet. Its engines glimmered against the horizon, a shadow that stretched across the plains. The humans whispered in awe and fear, unsure of what to expect. Eli approached Lyra, his face serious. "Lyra, that ship," he said. "It belongs to your father." Lyra felt a mixture of apprehension and determination. This was the moment she had been preparing for in ways she had not fully understood. She straightened her shoulders, drawing on the courage she had cultivated over months of struggle, learning, and leadership. "We will face him as we face all challenges," she said firmly. "We will not falter." The council gathered to discuss the arrival. Lyra spoke confidently, outlining how the humans should interact with the fleet. "We will not attack unless attacked," she said. "But we will be ready. We will show that this colony is strong, that its people are capable, and that I am not the child you once dismissed." As the fleet landed near the settlement, the humans waited with cautious anticipation. Lyra approached the landing zone with Eli, Mara, and Jonas at her side. Lord Carrion descended from his ship, a towering figure of authority and command. His presence exuded power, and for a moment Lyra felt the old fear, the memory of neglect and cold judgment. "Carrion," she said, her voice steady but carrying the weight of months of growth. "Why are you here?" Lord Carrion's eyes swept over the humans, assessing them with the practiced gaze of a ruler. Then he looked at Lyra. "I have heard of your exploits," he said. His voice was calm, almost measured. "It seems the stories were not exaggerated. You have survived, and you have led." Lyra felt a rush of emotion, anger, pride, and a quiet satisfaction. "I did not survive to prove you wrong," she said, "but to find my own strength. I learned from these humans. I trained. I acted. I am no longer the child you dismissed." Carrion's expression remained unreadable. "You have grown," he admitted, "but do not mistake this for permission to defy me. You are still my daughter, and your place was always meant to serve the Empire." Lyra met his gaze, her eyes steady. "I serve no one but those I choose to protect," she said. "I protect this colony. I protect the humans who trusted me. I am not here to be commanded or overlooked. I have chosen my path, and it is my own." For a moment, silence fell over the landing zone. The humans watched, uncertain, yet inspired by Lyra's courage. Even Carrion seemed taken aback, perhaps not expecting his neglected daughter to speak with such authority and confidence. Then, without warning, Carrion stepped forward. "You dare speak to me this way?" he demanded, his voice rising with authority. Lyra stood her ground. "I speak with truth," she said. "You sent me away thinking I was unworthy. I have proven otherwise, not to you, but to myself and to those I protect. I will not be a tool of neglect or fear. I am my own." The tension was palpable. Carrion's fleet remained silent in the background, his power undeniable, yet Lyra's determination did not waver. She had faced rogue warlords, led humans in battle, and risen from neglect to heroism. She knew the strength of her convictions, and she knew the value of her allies. Eli stepped beside her, his voice calm but firm. "Carrion, these people trust Lyra. She has proven herself beyond any doubt. If you wish to test her, know this, we will stand with her. She is not alone." Mara and Jonas joined, their expressions unwavering. The humans around them formed a protective circle, silent yet resolute. Lyra felt the surge of unity and courage that had grown over months of shared struggle. She realized that her strength was amplified by the trust, loyalty, and bravery of those she had guided. Carrion studied the scene, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the humans' resolve. He had underestimated the influence Lyra could wield, the bond she had formed with these humans, and the power of combined ingenuity and courage. For the first time, he faced a reality he could not control entirely, a daughter who had risen beyond his neglect. Finally, Carrion spoke, his voice quieter now, tinged with a grudging respect. "You have grown strong and clever. I cannot deny that. You have chosen your path, and it seems I am powerless to prevent it." Lyra felt a quiet sense of relief. This was not victory over her father through force, but through truth, courage, and independence. She had proven herself not by submission, but by action and leadership. "I will not return," she said firmly. "I belong here with these people. My place is among those I protect, not in a court that neglected me." Carrion studied her for a long moment. Then, with a gesture of acknowledgement, he turned back to his ship. "So be it," he said. "You have chosen wisely in your way." The fleet lifted off, leaving Aurora Prime behind. The humans cheered softly, the tension dissolving into relief and celebration. Lyra stood among them, not as a child, not as an exile, but as a leader, a protector, and a hero. In the following days, life in the colony returned to a rhythm of rebuilding, training, and planning for the future. Lyra continued to teach, to guide, and to inspire. Her actions had changed the perception of humans across nearby colonies, and tales of her courage spread further into the galaxy. Lyra reflected on her journey, from the cold halls of the eclipse of Carrion to the wild plains of Aurora Prime. She had been neglected, dismissed, and underestimated. She had faced rogue warlords, trained with humans, and risen to a position of respect and influence. She had discovered that true strength came not from birthright, but from courage, action, and the bonds formed through trust and shared struggle. One evening, as she walked through the settlement, children ran to greet her, calling her a hero. Adults smiled and nodded in acknowledgement, and she felt the warmth of belonging like never before. She realized that her journey was not about proving herself to her father or anyone else. It was about embracing her potential, protecting those who depended on her, and choosing her own path. Eli joined her on a hill overlooking the settlement. "You've done something incredible, Lyra," he said. "You've changed this colony, and you've shown what is possible when courage and determination lead the way." Lyra smiled softly. "I only did what I had to do," she said. "But you, Mara, Jonas, and all the humans here, you gave me the chance to grow. Together, we are stronger than any one of us alone." Eli nodded. "And this is just the beginning. The galaxy is vast, and there will be more challenges. But if anyone can face them, it's you and the humans who stand with you." Lyra looked up at the night sky, the stars twinkling like distant promises. She felt excitement, anticipation, and determination. Her journey had begun as exile and neglect, but it had led to growth, courage, and heroism. She had risen not because she was forced to, but because she chose to act, to learn, and to protect. And as she stood there, surrounded by those who trusted her, Lyra knew with certainty that she would continue to rise. She would lead, she would protect, and she would inspire, not as a neglected daughter of an alien lord, but as a hero in her own right. The stars above shone brightly, reflecting the light of a girl who had been sent away, who had learned, and who had risen to meet her destiny. Aurora Prime was safe, its people stronger and braver, and Lyra, once overlooked, now celebrated, stood at the center of it all, ready for whatever the future held. The galaxy had witnessed her growth, and this was only the beginning.